Welcome to the Colony Archive, a review and analysis on the politics of empire and resistance. Today, I have with me Tariq Ra'ouf. He is a political activist based in Seattle, United States, and he was kind enough to accept our invitation. Tariq, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
So, Tariq, tell me, because I was going through your Instagram and you've been doing a lot of activism related to Palestine, and you have a big following, and they all follow the things that you have to say about Palestine. So, tell us what politicized you and what brought you to the Palestine Solidarity Action.
That's such an interesting question. For a long time, for my whole life, I actually wasn't very political at all. I didn't care much about Palestine. I wanted to be the American kid, just like all my rest of my friends. And it wasn't until like my grandmother died in 2019 that I was like, oh gosh, I've like gone so far away from my heritage, my culture. I saw family members I hadn't recognized in years, and I was like, no, I gotta come back to this. And so I started feeling more pride in my identity, started finally like wearing my Palestinian flag pins and like kind of like really embracing that heritage. But what really politicized me was when a Zionist couple complained about the Palestine flag pin that I had on my shirt at the time at work, and I worked at the Apple store. And Apple sided with the Zionist couple and told me that I couldn't wear the pin anymore. And I was like, that's absurd. It's not like, because they said that it was a political solicitation. I was like, I was literally just being proud of my heritage. It's just like the same way anyone could wear an American flag pin. And it caused a bunch of drama. And then I started looking into it. And I realized how complicit Apple is in the apartheid in Israel because they have a massive footprint there. And so from that moment on, I knew that I was going to have to start making videos online telling everyone about how racist they are. And that's really what activated me and got me to fight for Palestine up until, the genocide started. And then I spent 8 months trying to tell the world how complicit Apple is in the apartheid and the genocide. And I got fired last year. When I got fired last year, that's really what actually enabled me to do activism almost full time. And it led me to do the global march to Gaza earlier this summer. And then I worked on the global Sumud Flotilla just last month. So that's how I got where I am today.
No, and I mean, it's crazy what you say regarding the Palestinian flag that you were wearing. And I assume it was a very small pin, like it wasn't really a
Oh,
big
yeah.
flag.
Just this thing. Yeah. Yeah.
So what's crazy to me is that, yeah, so the smallest expression of solidarity with the Palestinians in a way is repressed, and even criminalized, because they're even trying to deport people who are permanent residents based on their Palestine solidarity action. And I mean, I was actually in a very Zionist neighborhood in Chicago over the summer, and there was a barista working at a cafe, and I noticed she just had a tiny watermelon, and I kind of like pointed to her and I said, what's up? And she's like, yeah, this is actually safe because it's ambiguous, because not everybody will interpret the watermelon as a Palestine solidarity symbol. So I guess, I mean, yeah, but the thing is, eventually I think they're going to also come after watermelons. So that's I think is the crazy thing.
They already like have started going after watermelons, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm an academic, and what's also crazy is even when they have a simple job posting for Palestinian studies, so CUNY Hunter, which is a college in New York City, they had a posting for a job in Palestinian studies, and then the governor of New York forced them to change the description of the job because it sounded too pro-Palestinian, even though it was just a simple job posting for the study of Palestinian history. So I mean, yeah, I think they're repressing and criminalizing the smallest expression of solidarity with Palestine.
Yeah, no, it's true, and it goes to show how important all of that work is to keep on fighting it because like it's just unacceptable. You get treated this way in any other if any other heritage or culture gets treated this way, you'd see immediately how awful or racist it is. So that's why we have to fight back.
Yeah, that's right. And then I think you've been keeping up very closely with the developments in the past 2 years, and uh, we've been all following, the ceasefire and Donald Trump taking credit for it, even though, I mean, I think it's a lot more complicated than that. But tell us, so what is this ceasefire about, and is it really a ceasefire?
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, so just the other day, I mean, Israel has been breaking the ceasefire consistently since it was announced and it was enacted upon, right? The I had a cousin of mine who's from Gaza. She reached out to me mere hours after they announced the ceasefire. It was literally her last text about it was like, they announced a ceasefire, and then the immediate text after that was that she lost 3 additional cousins um, in the hours after the ceasefire because they bombed a building not too long after that. And then just a couple of days ago, the drones have returned. They started attacking the south of Gaza. They started attacking Rafah. A bunch of the comrades that I follow on Instagram have been posting about like they thought this war was over. Like why is the bombing back? So there is no ceasefire. Like any talk about a ceasefire is just it's a political game to try and convince the masses that aren't checking in on this publicly, that don't have family there, that don't know what's going on. They all believe that there's a ceasefire, and they want to be made to believe that if it did break, it wasn't Israel that broke the ceasefire. They want to be convinced that it was Hamas that broke the ceasefire. It's all just a political game to them. But in reality, Israel has consistently and repeatedly broken every single ceasefire that they say that they've wanted to create over the last 2 years.
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean, I was even seeing that they're bombing south of Lebanon, and they're still bombing Gaza. But I think, yeah, what's really troubling is that because there's an announcement of ceasefire, and perhaps there's lesser bombing or fewer bombings, there's this impression now in the Western public that things are going back to normal. But as you're saying, I don't think that's the case. And I mean, I was even reading the BBC and Reuters today, and they were even admitting that Israel is still bombing Gaza. But I mean, of course, they gaslight and they deflect the blame to Hamas, saying that they did something that provoked Israel to break the ceasefire or bomb Gaza. But I mean, I think, like you're saying, I mean, you even had this with the European settler colonialists, because when they made treaties with the indigenous people that they were trying to conquer, a lot of times they broke their treaties. And now it's even more troubling because we have such rapid transmission of information, and information is easily and immediately accessible. You can know what is happening around the world very quickly, and there are all these world powers that are in a way witness to the ceasefire, and they even had a glorious meeting about it where the Pakistan Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif nominated Donald Trump for the Peace Prize, and he had this really really cringe, kind of pandering to Trump that he's an amazing peacemaker, and he even gave him credit for the ceasefire between India and Pakistan, even though there were several countries involved with that, but Trump likes to take the credit. Um, but yeah, I mean, so the ceasefire. I mean, it's just very precarious, and I'm still very worried. But I mean, just based on you said you have a cousin in Gaza, so based on your contacts in Palestine, what are they saying? What is the situation like on the ground right now?
I mean, the situation is awful. People keep getting evacuated and told to move from where they were. They were allowed for a few days, allowed to go back to their homes, only for them to be told that either they have to evacuate again, or those homes or those areas are consistently getting bombed. It's horrific, and it's it's really exhausting because this is something that we have been dealing with for 2 years. And over the last 2 years, my family has lost about 48 people. And what really sucks is that it's not just Israel bombing civilian areas that's responsible for the deaths of my family members. It's also we had a family member die when she went to go get aid through the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which was U.S. led. Uh, it's it's absurd, and I think what this whole situation is showing the world is just how violent these countries are, both Israel and the United States, and it's lifted the mask off of these countries. Specifically, the United States is a country that likes to say that it's always defending something or it's always fighting for equality or peace or whatever. You can see with the way that they've handled the distribution of aid, with the way that they've constantly paid for the bombs being dropped by Israel, that everything is a lie. And it's just a matter of power and dominance and strategic warfare in a matter to get them more land or more resources.
That's right, and I mean, I we also witnessed that with the Iran situation, where they baited Iran into negotiations, and they pretended that they're so kind and open to negotiations, and they want to settle everything through diplomacy. But in the middle of negotiations, the U.S. gave the green light to Israel to attack Iran, and I mean, the whole thing is just so absurd. And what's crazy to me is that I mean, I think people fall for it less now than they did maybe a decade ago, but still people fall for these false narratives, and yeah, it's really crazy. But I mean, regarding the American public, because you're based in Seattle, and you're within the U.S. activist circles, would you say that U.S. public opinion has changed in the past year regarding Palestine and Israel?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It has changed so much. It's almost I want to say it's almost like night and day, but it's not quite there yet. It's like night and dusk maybe. Like it's getting there. You can see the sunlight kind of shining through a little bit because a lot of people are recognizing uh the evil of Israel and Zionism, and I've had a handful of people over the last 2 years reach out to me, be like, I had no idea. One person reached out to me, he was friends of mine for 10, 15 years. At the start of the genocide, he had blocked all the accounts that were talking about Palestine, including me, because he was like, he didn't want to deal with
Hmm.
it. He just like, he was being fed a narrative, and he believed that, like, the Jews were being attacked. He believed the narrative that Israel and the United States was putting out, and he was like, I'm not gonna fall into, like, I don't want anything to do with it. And then he started
Hmm.
doing his own research, and then he messaged me and he said, I'm so sorry that I blocked you. You didn't even know that I blocked you. But once I started looking into it, I was shocked. And that's the theme, is once people start really looking into what's going on, it's unavoidable. You can see the facts for yourself when you look it up yourself, and you're not being fed these narratives through mainstream media or through these press releases or through the governments. And so, yeah, I would say America is starting to wake up, but there are, I mean, decades of propaganda and brainwashing that they have to like fight their way away from. Most Americans still believe in the goodness of the Democratic Party. They still
Hmm.
believe that the Democrats are the good guys and the Republicans are the bad guys, because they don't really look into foreign policy. They don't really look into it. They just believe what they're told about foreign policy, the reasons why we go to war. I mean, everyone is starting to recognize that, the war on terror in 2001 after 9/11, people have started to realize how much that was all a lie, right? But they're only
Hmm.
just starting to realize that, and they're not necessarily realizing that almost every single war that America has started or said that they want to be in, the reason we got into it is based off of a lie. And so I think what Palestine is doing is starting to wake a lot of America up to go and show them how deep these lies go.
That's right. And and what's crazy to me too is that Wikipedia, if go to a Wikipedia entry about a current event, especially a controversial event or a event that implicates foreign policy and imperialism, oftentimes you just get basically the CIA narrative. So, or if not the CIA narrative, you get the official US government narrative about the issue. But I think the genocide in Palestine is just so overwhelmingly obvious that even Wikipedia, now if you go to the Wikipedia entry, I would say it's a more balanced representation of what is happening in Israel and Palestine. So I think that in itself kind of shows that there is a shift in public opinion, because Wikipedia often does reflect public opinion, because even though governments might try to influence that, especially the U.S. government, it's still edited by the public. So I think you're right that there is a change. And I think another evidence for it is, the mayoral candidacy of Zohran Mamdani and the popularity that is enjoyed. Even though, in my interpretation, he's kind of caved and he's really come closer to the kind of the AOC Bernie position on Palestine, which is, just don't starve the children, but the resistance is bad and Palestinians shouldn't really resist, and they should just do diplomacy, even though they have tried diplomacy. Yeah, I mean, what do you think about Zohran Mamdani and relation to Palestine?
Oh man, I see what he's trying to do, and so I question whether or not how much of a fault I want to give this man. Uh, being the mayor of America's largest city is a massive task, and you can create so much good and help so many people within that city. And America is still massively Zionist, and those who aren't Zionists still believe a lot of Zionist talking points. And I think the reason that people like AOC and Bernie try to play it safe because they still think that being on the more right side of democracy, being on the like trying to earn those more conservative voices, they think it's worth it. But I think what Zohran has proven is that's not necessarily true. And so I really like the way that he started his campaign, how he was a lot more frank about what he was doing. And you can see what Zoran's past, like his family supports Palestine, he supports Palestine. You can see that this man does support the cause. But what he's doing in these interviews is he's being way more careful than he was before, because I think he recognizes the Zionist tendencies of America, and I think he's trying to make himself more mainstream. And so, do I condemn him for not for hating on the resistance or saying the resistance is bad? I don't know, because I believe in the resistance, right? I believe in the right to resistance, uh, but I understand
But
the
do you condemn Hamas? No, I'm just kidding. Because you said condemn. I remember that.
oh
That's
man,
that's an obligatory
yes,
question now
it
anywhere you go. Is
is.
do you?
It's so absurd because that question comes from an event that killed 1,200 people, most of which were IDF soldiers, right? And how it's so absurd that people aren't being asked to condemn the IDF when they've killed over 600,000 people. So it's like, so I see the way that Momdan, uh,
Mamdani.
thank you. I see the way that Mamdani is answering these questions, and I see it as a strategic political move to win the election, and I don't see it as his actual view on the situation.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think his interviews, and that's why they're really mad about him, because they're like, your interviews are probably different. And they also, allege, the right wingers and the Islamophobes are alleging that, he wants to establish Sharia law, which is just absurd. But I mean,
Well,
that's
like,
actually the kind of.
I love being able to support my resistance. I love being able to defend my people. But if you want to win an election in America, the fact of the matter is you cannot support the resistance in America because the vast majority of Americans are being taught that that is terrorism. So it's like until we can get over the fact that it's not terrorism, it's self-defense, that's when people like Zohran will be able to stand with their full chest and support the resistance. But we're not there yet. And so it's absurd that people get mad when he isn't defending the resistance. I'm like, you don't understand the people of America at that point if you get mad at him for not doing that.
Yeah. Although in 2 points here, I think Norman Finkelstein, the Jewish scholar, had a really interesting lecture. Just I think it was published a week ago by University of Massachusetts Amherst, and he was saying that everybody asked you, do you condemn Hamas? And on Piers Morgan, he was asked whether he condemns Hamas for October 7th, and his response was that they committed war crimes and they committed atrocities, but he still would not condemn them because they're resisting occupation and genocide and ethnic cleansing. And he compared it to the abolitionists and the Nat Turner rebellion against white supremacy, and saying that they did kill civilians, white civilians, but at the same time he would not condemn it, even though he recognizes the atrocities that might have been committed by the slave rebellion. And I think it was, I mean, there are different cases, but I think it was an interesting contrast. But then to your point about Zohran, so Norman Finkelstein is an independent scholar, so he has a lot more freedom in what he can say. So I see what you mean with Zohran, but at the same time, I think that strategy of just pandering to the center might eventually backfire, because he's not going to win the center. He's not going to win the right wingers. They already hate him. And he might actually lose his potential, leftist and anti-imperialist supporters. So I mean, that's one thing I actually like about Trump, is that he doubles down on his positions and he doesn't try to pander to a center. He just doubles down and it becomes more popular because of it. So in my thinking, I'm thinking that perhaps a better strategy is to not pander and just double down and be sincere. But who knows? I mean, as the Arabs say, "Wallahu alam," God knows best, and I'm just a spectator.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I'm very interested to see how these elections are going to go in a few weeks.
Yeah. So we talked about the U.S. public opinion, and you're saying it's shifting. And I think I agree with you that the popular opinion and the public opinion is shifting on Palestine. Uh, Although my worry is that, if, say, um, Israel kind of changes policy for a little while and they stop the genocide for a little while, and they actually respect the ceasefire for a little while, Americans will just forget about it because they have a pretty short historical memory, and they'll just forget about it. And when they resume, that kind of momentum might change, and public opinion might become muddled and not really interested in Palestine. That's one of the worries I have. But I'm hoping that there is a sustained change that will kind of remain. And you even see it with the conservatives and the right wingers. So even Tucker Carlson, for example, or Candace Owens, they're changing their perspective. So I think that's big.
It's huge. It's absolutely huge. I think the fact that Marjorie Taylor Greene is the first person in the U.S. government to say that's not Hamas, that's women and children, blows my mind. Blows my mind. And I think that in and of itself, it there could be a ceasefire and then people might forget about it, right? But I think the thing is about history is you have all of these war crimes that have been happening for the last 2 years that I don't think the international community is going to want to forget about it, and I certainly know the Palestinian community isn't going to want to forget about it. And it's our job to make sure that people are reminded and educated about all of the awful things that Israel did do, not just what they're continuing to do, because that is where we have history and truth on our side. You look at every single thing. You look at the case of Hind Rajab, for example, abhorrent, horrible thing that happened to a 6-year-old girl that we can now constantly remind people and show people who still, majority of people, I don't think still know about Hind's story. So when you tell people about Hind's story and the circumstances in which her ambulance was double tapped, and like you show them the stories that happened so consistently over the last 2 years, I think we have that on our side, and we can make sure that like people don't forget about it, and that they're given the history of the past 2 years to be like, this is exactly how vile and evil Israel is, and this is why we need to hold Israel and the U.S. accountable.
That's right. And I'm really hoping that there is this sustained change in public opinion. But my worry is that another worry that I have, in addition to kind of the lack of the historical memory, is that the ruling class is also really coordinating well around Zionism. So I mean, you had Larry Ellison, who's trying to buy TikTok. I don't know if he completed the purchase. but it seems like that they're going to try to control the algorithm in the US. And also, when it comes to the big donors who are donating to universities and cultural institutions, they're trying to really move the money away from anything related to Palestine or Middle East in a critical way. So these are all concerns. And also, just the CBS purchase, for example. So I mean, CBS now has a very Zionist editor. So all those things are worrisome. Even though I mean, CBS is primarily for boomers, I don't think the millennials or Generation Z or generation below them watch it. So I mean, I think it is a battle that's being fought, and at some point, but I think the public opinion, no matter how hard they try, they will just not be convinced by it because we're already seeing an eroding trust in institutions in the U.S. So, and I think linked to that, their kind of love for Israel will also decline in the near future.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be their love for Israel is going to be absolutely be their undoing. Standing so strongly with Israel as it commits so many war crimes is just so absurd. And then you also see the way that trust in these institutions and these lobbyists is falling apart. Like we just had the first ever, I think it was congressman, say that he's returning the money that he got from a.
Oh yeah, Democratic from Massachusetts. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That's massive. And I think that goes to show like that could be the rock that starts the avalanche, in terms of like, oh, people are realizing that what APAC is standing for and what the current government of Israel is standing for is genocide. Even though we all know it's not just the current government of Israel, we'll give them this as a little like, okay, yeah, you can start there and you start to realize how every government of Israel has really wanted this since its inception. But the fact that like APAC is starting to be looked at. People don't want to answer the question on APAC. Gavin Newsom was on a podcast. He couldn't even answer the question. He said, "It's interesting that you're asking me about APAC." Cory Booker was like, "Oh, but like that was just a very minimal amount of my things. Like it was 800,000." It's like people are starting to get questioned, and they're flustering because they're realizing that APAC is so evil, and I think
Liked.
that's good. The beginning of the end.
That's right. And I
Yeah.
mean, the Cory Booker one was so hilarious because what he started to do, he started to manipulate the white liberal guilt, because I think there were two white women who were questioning him, and he's like, "Oh, I'm black and I'm from this like working class black neighborhood," and it was just like, how is this even relevant? I think like 5 years ago, they would have proudly said that I take APAC money and I'm not ashamed of it, but now they actually have to kind of explain it away, even if they're not returning the money or taking the money.
Mm-hmm.
So exactly.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and so the last thing I wanted to ask you, because of your political activism, is about the Sumud Flotilla. So
Mm-hmm.
tell our audience, what is the flotilla about and what happened to it?
Yeah. Oh man, I love the Global Sumud Flotilla so much. So the Global Sumud Flotilla started. The whole thing started. It actually started in June with an effort called Global March to Gaza, in which a bunch of organizers wanted to get a bunch of activists to Cairo to take a bus. The idea was we'd take the bus halfway from Cairo to Gaza to a town called Al Arish, and we'd march from Al Arish into Gaza to show international solidarity with the people of Gaza and put some sort of pressure on Israel and on the governments around Israel to like let aid in. That mission did not go so well. That was the first time that Israel bombed Iran. Iran started bombing Israel back. It was chaos. And so we all kind of went home and we were like, wow, how can we continue to do this? Like we need to like break the freaking siege. And so the idea was it was just after two Freedom Flotilla missions, the Handela and the Madeleine. And so they're like, all right, well let's do flotillas. And so they gathered activists from around the world, from over 44 countries. We had 500 participants, around 500 participants on the ships, but we had many more hundreds of participants on the ground, like myself, working on like communications or legal or things like that. And so we said, let's see what we can do. If they can try to stop one ship or two ships, but can they stop like 40 ships. We had 41 ships out on the sea, and the last month, the, uh, they all got intercepted by Israel. But what we learned in that endeavor is that they could barely stop the 41 ships. The way one of the ships got so close to Gaza within, I think, 30, 40 nautical miles, which is like some of the closest that any of the flotillas had ever gotten to Gaza, because the IOF, in order to stop all of these ships, they'd circle around one of the ships, tell them to turn off their engine, but then they'd have to go and leave to go tell other ships to stop their engine, which then allowed the previous ship to keep on going. So the Global Sumud Flotilla was an effort by normal civilians, and I'm sorry if I'm rambling, but it was essentially an effort by thousands of normal people. These weren't activists by trade. They weren't politicians. Some of them were politicians, but they were teachers, musicians, influencers, all sorts of people saying, I've had enough with my government being complicit. They have people from 44 countries. And I think one of the things that made it so successful is that we had so many internationals coming to do this, and Israel still broke the law. Israel still broke international law to illegally kidnap these people in international water. They had no right. These activists and these humanitarians had every right to try and deliver aid. It's a lawful thing to do. So Israel told the world for weeks what they were going to do. They told the world for weeks that they're going to break international law, and then they proceeded to break international law. And not only that, they proceeded to violate human rights of those participants while they were in prison. And it showed the world exactly how cruel they are to all of their participants. And it's things like that where normal people get up and decide, I'm sick, I'm done, I'm through with my government's not listening to us. How can we actually physically help? And that's like what made the Global Sumud Flotilla so successful and so amazing, is we poked a massive hole in this fabric of like Israel's like unpenetrable like defenses, and showed the world, one, you can outmaneuver the IOF on international waters, and two, the international community will be forced to respond when you put internationals and like normal civilians at risk of being bombed by Israel's horrific war practices.
Mhm. But then what I don't understand is it seems to me that the cost for Israel to let the flotilla to actually get to Gaza and provide some aid is not that high. Um, and the image, it would actually help, their humanitarian image, and it would help, all the uh, basically the negative image that the world has about Israel now. So why is it that they're so adamant in basically kidnapping the flotilla activists even before they reach Gaza?
Because Israel is a settler colonialist state that wants all of the land, and they want to drive all the Palestinians out of the land. And if they can't drive the Palestinians out of the land, then they will go as far as to kill all of the Palestinians there if they can. We saw, I mean, they had massive frigates on the water, these massive army ships. Operating those ships cost millions of dollars a day. They'd rather spend millions of dollars in order to stop the flow of aid and let any of the Palestinians get help than succumb to this idea that, okay, no, we'll let you help some people out. They don't want to help any of the Palestinians. They're so racist and dehumanizing. They firmly believe that all Palestinians deserve to die, and anyone that wants to help them is a terrorist. Ben Gvir met with the flotilla participants in a yard in Israeli prison, and pointed at them and called them all terrorists just because they wanted to bring baby formula and diapers to a starving population.
No. Yeah, no, I think that's a big part of it. Because I mean, even before the genocide, before 2023, some claim, including Norman Finkelstein, that they were keeping Gaza just on a starvation plus kind of diet. That they were allowing stuff to get in, but not to a point that they would live comfortably with enough food. So I think the kind of the blockage of the humanitarian flotillas partly just goes back to their the intent to ethnically cleanse and commit a genocide against Palestinians. So I think that point is well taken. But just to push a little bit here and not create an echo chamber. There was a criticism of the flotilla too. I mean, there was the kind of the Zionist criticism that these is just virtue signaling, and these are just activists who want a virtue signal, and they're just they have bad character. But they even had criticism from pro-Palestine activists saying that they're not really accomplishing much because they keep getting kidnapped or intercepted by Israel, and then they're taking a lot of attention away from the situation in Gaza on the ground, and everybody's just like turning towards these Western activists. I mean, you said they're from 44 countries, but there's a good chunk of them that are coming from Western countries. So the claim of these pro-Palestine activists was that this is just serving as a distraction at this point. So how do you respond to that?
Yeah. See, that's something that we've been very heavily focused on for the entirety of the mission specifically. And like, I know for myself, I knew from the start that I wanted to make sure that we keep all eyes on Gaza. So we did what we could to we created Instagram live platforms where we platform a Palestinian from Gaza to give the opportunity, because the Instagram account was growing so massively. We are like, let's use this as a way to like people can like get hear directly from the people of Gaza. And I think the idea is we want to make sure that like anytime someone talked about the flotilla, that they were talking about why we were doing it. They were talking about the war crimes that Israel was responsible for. They were talking about the fact that Israel is constantly not only bombing Gaza, but allowing the West Bank to get encircled and cut off from the rest of the world as settlers continue to like murder civilians. So it was very important to us that we consistently brought that up in the conversations, and in any interviews that I did about it, I wanted to make sure that people understood that the reason we're doing this is because Israel's war crimes are unacceptable. And in terms of like it being a distraction, well, I think the flotilla successfully managed to get two nations to send out their navy fleets to come and defend the flotilla, which had never been done before. But every single other time the flotillas have been out, they've just gone out on their own. But because we had Spanish participants, so Spain sent out the frigate, and Italy also sent out their naval ships as a form of like, we'll come and escort you in case anything bad happens. And I think that did protect the civilians from actually getting bombed by Israel. But that also, it caused massive general strikes all over the world, all over Italy. Italy shut down because Israel harmed the flotilla and shut the ports down, shut the docks down. It got the conversation about what was happening in Gaza to levels that we hadn't really previously seen. And it showed the world what happens when people unite and they perform a general strike for the people of Palestine. It's extremely effective. General strikes are so effective, but like, I know people in America, they don't really think that general strikes are effective because they're so inundated and they love their capitalism. But people in Italy, people in Spain, they were like, there was a video that came out while the flotillas were sailing of a strike stopping all of the traffic in, I think it was in Italy. And all the people that were stopped were smiling. They're like, I love that this is happening. This is for Palestine. This should happen. And that's what we need to show the world, is we need to show the world that like we can support Palestine and bring attention to Palestine by stopping what we're doing, by stopping business as usual. And I think in that respect, it was massively successful. And as long as the people working on the flotilla, the people on the flotilla consistently bring it back to Israel's war crimes, then it doesn't become a distraction. It becomes a tool for magnification about why those war crimes must end.
Yeah, and I think the unfortunate thing too is that a lot of times, if a particular cause has a Western face on it, it does actually help and it brings more attention to it. So I think that's also a response to the allegation that it was just a distraction. Very good, Tariq. So my very last question and the most difficult question that I pose to you is that what is your prediction for the near future in
Oh gosh. So that's a very that is a, that's one hell of a question. I don't think I've ever gotten that question before. My prediction for the near future of Gaza. You know, it depends very heavily on whether or not the people of the world are willing to do what it takes to end the atrocities and to not only hold Israel accountable for their war crimes, but hold their governments accountable for their complicity in allowing this to happen and convincing their governments to do more to benefit the people of Gaza. I think it's not just a ceasefire that needs to happen, right? It is aid needs to be brought in. International aid needs to be given to the people of Gaza. Multiple countries need to come in, need to be providing their own forms of aid. They need to help provide resources for reconstruction and provide, uh, you know, medical services and mental health services to the people who've been facing a genocide for the last 2 years. I think the future of Gaza depends on how far we're all willing to go as humanity to help each other out and to really stop this systemic injustice of settler colonialism and apartheid.
Very good. Thank you, Tara, for joining us.
Thank you for having me, man. It was good to be here.